من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي، وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، إلهي وربي من لي غيرك. أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا نتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خادعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من آويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا ربي، وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثور، يسير بقاء قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الظليم الهقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أدج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرغت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولو نادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين، أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربا؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك، وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك، أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين. وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا، وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقدرة وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت، كتمته أو أعلنت، أخفيته أو أظهرت، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي. يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي. أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي. قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين، وأجعل وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومنا علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقل لي عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعام، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بي ما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. I'd like to welcome you all to another one of our Thursday night programs. I don't think that there are any announcements about upcoming programs. Oh, yes, sorry. You know what? Thank you. Let me get the exact details on that. I'm so sorry. because I clearly forgot about it. I looked at the email too. I just probably didn't scroll down far. No, it's at the top. All right. So yes, tomorrow evening, starting at 7 p.m., we have our youth group, our first youth group. So please, if you will be interested in the future, make sure you make time for tomorrow, because I know that they are planning to discuss, the purpose of the youth group, what they plan to do, and events and things based around the Friday night youth meeting. I know the target is towards high school students and college students, but I'm sure if you have middle schoolers or you have those later teenagers, middle teenagers, this would be perfect for them. So if your kids fit into that group, if you fit into that group, I know you do. You'll be here tomorrow? All right, good to hear. So 7 o'clock. The flyer says 7 p.m. Yeah. And I think that is it. Tonight we are once again joined by Sayyid Abbas. If you can all join me in welcoming him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد عليه محمد وعجل فرجه وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Allah has prescribed for us in the Quran, for men and women, the verse is for men, but this ruling is for everyone to lower their eyes when it comes to haram scenes or things that are not allowed to be seen. Now, to open this mas'ala, this issue up before we begin tonight's discussion, obviously to look at someone with lustful intentions is haram. And if a person is attracted to someone, if they find that, in a way that they can look and analyze and reflect on themselves and see that, yes, this is coming from lust, yes, then that look would be haram. They have to lower their gaze. If it is not haram, meaning that if there's no lust, then they can look. So it goes back to the intention when it comes to looking at someone in a haram way or a non-haram way. It goes back to intention. Is this coming out of lust or not? But there are cases where even with a pure intention, even if their intention can be okay, it is still, as a matter of obligatory precaution, haram to look. That is when the opposite gender is dressed inappropriately. Clothes that are not of, so you could say, outside common clothes. Like, for example, if someone is wearing, say, swimwear or something. Or a brother, this is for sisters as well, a person does not have a shirt on, because usually it's customary in society to have a shirt on. Or their shorts are too, for example, low. In that case, showing too much of the leg, which is not muta'araf shown. that Sayyid Sistani, Ayatollah Sistani, has an ihtiyat, even with intentions that are not bad, even without evil intentions or without lustful intentions, just to look at that, a person that does not have addressed appropriately, it is a matter of precaution not to look at them as well. Inshallah, if there's other questions about this, we'll ask at the end, or I'll be here, so that inshallah Allah can help us keep our eyes inshallah pure. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So this is also regardless if it's sports or not sports. So there's a sport where the man is without a shirt, for example, surfing or something. It's sports and they're watching it. Even then, for a woman to watch it would be a matter of obligatory precaution. Or other sports that they would be dressed, the men would be dressed inappropriately. Tonight's discussion, we're going to talk about an important concept that I want to take you back, a little bit to the Renaissance. That after the Renaissance and the pressure that the church put on people, and there was a movement to be freed from the church and to be freed from God. They noticed that after this movement happened, that yes, there was more freedom, but at the same time, they lost ethics and morality. Because usually wherever religion was present, there would be more morals, more ethics. So now what happened is that society in Western culture, there was a movement of secularism to deal with our life without religious belief, and that a life of humanism, where human life is the focal point of us, not God anymore. God is not the center of our lives, it is the human. And at the same time, secularism, meaning that you should live your life without a religion, without God. And this caused there to be many philosophers and many thinkers to think of a way for society to be ethical and moral without God, without religion. Can this happen? Is this even possible? This is the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. And is this even plausible? Is this effective? Can somebody become ethical without having religion, without having God? So let's dive into this question and talk about it, and I want you to think about it. We understand that in Islam, that our Prophet of Islam was sent for what? One of the famous narrations, which was his waladat, was what? Why was he sent? Who can tell me? Why was the Prophet sent in this famous narration? It's very, very famous, and if we say about one hadith from the Prophet, everyone usually knows, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتِمَّ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, so I can complete the perfection of ethics. I have came down, I have been sent, so that society can be more moral, so you can reach the best of ethics. The life of our Prophet in the message of Islam is always a message that your relationship with God depends on your moral behavior and how you treat others. There's no separation. And we see that from Imam Ali alayhi salam in the narrations, that God has placed huquq al-nas muqaddamatan, has put it as a forefront to his own rights. And unfortunately, yes, we agree that this doesn't necessarily mean that all Muslims will be the most ethical, because there might be ignorance in us, there might be practicing religion wrong. But pure religion, the exact Islam, the Islam that was practiced by a holy prophet, was a religion that was brought to perfect ethics, to make Muslims the most moral of people. If I were to ask you right now, who is the most moral person that you know? You would say the Prophet of Islam. Who had the best akhlaq, who had the best ethics? You say the Prophet of Islam. And you see, you have verses of Quran that in some of the verses it's very clear that the Prophet of Islam has فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. And it is from the mercy of God that you were very kind to them, you were lenient towards them. Rasulullah was very lenient towards the people. And there's no doubt about this. Or you have other verses in the Holy Quran that actually the Holy Prophet of Islam was upon a very great akhlaq, an azim akhlaq we have. And you see, for example, I'll give you وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, and indeed you are of a high moral character, a great moral character. The akhlaq of the Prophet was azim. A person by the name of Thumama ibn Uthal comes and he is receiving a mission. He is receiving a letter from the Holy Prophet of Islam. The Holy Prophet would write letters to different civilizations, different people. This was actually one of the chieftains of Yamama, which is an area of Najd, modern-day Najd, northeast of Medina. That entire area they call it Najd. And he receives this letter, and usually you heard of the expression, do not kill the messenger. So a group of people came to bring the letter of the Holy Prophet, and this chieftain by the name of Thumama kills them, murders them. And this is absolutely wrong, because how can you kill innocent people? How can you kill someone that is just bringing you a letter? Actually, from the letters of Rasulullah to the Byzantines, to the Persians, maybe about over 20 letters, around 30 letters that Rasulullah wrote to the people of Bahrain, for example, different areas. You understand that the religion of Islam is not a religion just for Arabs. You understand the universality. This is one of the proofs that Islam is for all civilizations, or else why would he write to the Byzantines and tell them to follow Islam, or write to the Persians? If he was just a prophet for the Arabs, he would have just been a Rasul for the Arabs, and that's it, send the message, because that's what the 313 Rasul that we have, as opposed to a Nabi, is that they bring out the message and show a message to them. So what is the Prophet going to do? The Muslimin captured Thumama, tied him up, and actually they were waiting for the Prophet of Islam to pass judgment upon him. So now he's a murderer of Muslims without any specific reason, and something that nobody else did, even the Persians, Byzantines, they never killed, say, that messenger that came in. So the Prophet of Islam, to show the akhlaq and morality, the akhlaq that is azim of the Holy Prophet, the Prophet of Islam comes to him and gives him and teaches him about Islam and offers him to accept Islam. This person still doesn't accept. Now he hasn't accepted Islam because, as you know in these stories, La ikraha fi din, Islam is not a religion that can be forced. You can't force. Say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Say it right now or you'll be executed. That's wrong, obviously. A religion is an acceptance of iman, is a voluntary action. So then he frees him. And this is from the akhlaq of the Prophet. A person that murdered Muslims, a person that still doesn't want to accept Islam, he frees him. And this is from the wisdom of the Holy Prophet. This is from the akhlaq of the Holy Prophet. And what would you do if you're in that position? Like, wait a minute. He sent me a message. This person claims to be a messenger. He freed me. I didn't even listen to him. I never submitted to him. Every other ruler and king says, you have to submit to me. Actually, he says, you don't have to submit to me. You're free to choose. And he says, it makes sense. This is a great religion. And he actually became Muslim after he was freed. Not when he was tied up and told about Islam. When he was open, his hands were open, he was free to go home, then he became Muslim. And he comes back and does the Shahada, then he comes back and becomes a Muslim. So these are cases in history where our holy Prophet of Islam, through his wisdom, through his ethical behavior, that he freed him and didn't have a grudge against him, didn't want to seek vengeance, even though these are very natural tendencies in humans, to harm a person that harmed you, to show, a reaction. So everyone here agrees that the most ethical of people are the prophets and imams. So our religion is a religion that emphasizes on akhlaq. But the problem is here is one, if we were to separate ethics from religion and to answer this question, can you be ethical without being religious? The first problem is this: what exactly is ethical behavior? What is moral behavior? See, the Quran mentions that the nafs has acquired فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. The nafs already knows good and bad to some extent. It has been revealed to us. It is fitri to us. It is ingrained in us, good and bad. Everyone here, would you agree with me that, for example, oppression is bad? Would anybody here say oppression is good? It's a good thing. No, everyone say oppression is bad. Would everybody here agree with me that lying is bad? Is lying bad? Yes. Yes. But when you dive into it, and this is what has confused all these philosophers that has tried to tackle the questions of ethical decisions without religion, without religious guidance, without a reference point, when you ask them and come into detail, say, for example, lying is bad. Is it absolutely bad in all conditions right now? Who can raise their hand? Is lying always bad? Is lying always bad? Can you lie sometimes? Can you lie sometimes? No, who said no? See, so already there's, amongst the ulama, there's already ikhtilaf. There's already, because you get confused. Right now, some big bodybuilder, thug, martial artist, gangster comes to me and grabs me from here, and everyone's so happy and smiling because they want to watch me get beaten up. And he grabs me and lifts me up and say, for example, where did this brother go? Who wants to volunteer for me to call their name, for example? One of the brothers here, for example. Okay, all right. So brother, they come and he grabs me and threatens me and say, where did this brother go, for example? And he just needs enough time to run off to the parking lot, to his car, and go on the 57 freeway and to floor it. He just needs that much time. Is it right for me to tell him, yes, I cannot lie, I'm haram, sorry, I just led the prayers in this masjid, Allah likes is haram. Allah will help him, inshallah. Yes, they asked him, where did he go? And I said, you know what, he went to his parking lot. And that is his, his his license plate is this, for example. He has this kind of car. Is that appropriate for me to do? Say lying is an absolute haram? Some of the philosophers, Western philosophers, agreed that absolute evil is in lying. There's no exceptions in lying. But religion teaches us and says that if someone's life is dependent on you lying, should I choose the life or should I choose lying? I will choose the life every time. That's not even sidq anymore. If I were to tell him the truth, instead of saying, for example, he went this way from this door, and then he can go on the 57 freeway and get out of here, then they would tell me, as you're a bad person, you did something bad in religion. You're not sadiq anymore, right? So even to distinguish what really is an ethical behavior, you still need to have the framework of religion. And this goes on. I can keep giving you different examples. And a lot of actually movies that are out and books written are all about this question. If you look at it, what is the right thing to do? It's confusing when you don't have religion, when you don't have a reference point, when you don't have framework to go off of. It's confusing. One guy will say do this, one guy will say do that. So therefore, the first thing that we say is it's impossible without knowing detail. If you want to uphold the rights of people, that was dhulm, means to take away the rights of people. Shouldn't you first know what rights people have? And then you can say they did dhulm to them or not did dhulm to them? And how do we understand the detail of the rights of people from religion? So to even understand religious ethical action, we need religion. Number two, if you leave ethical behavior and morality up to the people, is there a chance that it could change? Is there a chance that it can change? Yes. For example, what is the best type of dress to wear? Morality and dress. What is modest dress? Maybe 100 years ago, and this not maybe, for sure, 100 years ago, even in this country, in Europe, modest dress meant something else. And you even see the degradation of society slowly and slowly and slowly, even when, for example, swimwear came out. And many of the women did not want to, say 50, 60, 70 years ago, want to wear these outfits. They wanted to come out with these outfits. They would have to hire specific people that would wear them, because nobody wanted to do this. Or even when they would go to the beach, there would be a room for them to change, for example, because it was too immoral, too immodest to change in front of someone. So what society views as modest clothes changes. I want to share with you a hadith. So therefore, when there is no reference point from religion, one year a society can say this is actually bad. And then next year they can say, actually, no, this is actually good, and this is legal, and this is allowed, for example. Let's look at this hadith from the Holy Prophet of Islam. It's actually in Al-Kafi, one of our books. And Mas'ada ibn Sadaqa, an Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, I believe this is Imam Sadiq, قال النبي كيف بكم إذا فسدت نساؤكم وفسق شبابكم وَلَمْ تَأْمُرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلَمْ تَنْهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. How would you be if your women become fasid? They become corrupt. And also at the same time, there's fisq, there's corruption in the youth. How would you be at that time? He asked the companions, those around him. When women are corrupt and the youth are corrupt, how would you be? And you don't command them towards the good, and they're not forbidden from the evil. فَقِيلَ لَهُ وَيَكُونُ ذَلِكَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Is this even possible? Because the facade of women obviously means for men, they don't have ghayrah, they don't have manhood. And they're saying women would be corrupt, our youth would be corrupt, and we don't do anything about it. That's what the hadith is saying. You don't forbid the evil, you don't command the good, you just let it go. It's okay, go do whatever you want. And for them, this is an impossible question. And say, is this even true? And then the Prophet of Islam answers this way in this hadith, that na'am wa sharrun min dhalik. Actually, yes, a time will come forth. There are many hadith that the Prophet and the Imams had foreknowledge, and they warned of a time that would be very evil. Akhir al-zaman. Sayati zamanun. Many of the hadith, they start with this, sayati zamanun. There will be a time period that this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And actually in this narration it says, yes, it will be worse than this, than just the women and the young becoming corrupt. Then he asks this question. كيف بكم إذا أمرتم بالمنكر? How would you be when you are commanded towards evil? We always say amr bil ma'ruf, command towards good. How would you be if you're commanded towards evil? وَنَهَيْتُمْ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ, and you were prohibited from the good. And then again, what? Commanded to evil forbidden from the good. Say, كيف يا رسول الله ويكون ذلك? Yes, نعم وشر من ذلك. It will be even worse than this. Then the Prophet of Islam mentions this. كيف بكم إذا رأيتم المعروف منكرا? How would you be when ma'ruf and goodness becomes despised, becomes hated, becomes evil? How would you be? وَالْمُنْكَرُ مَعْرُوفًا, and something that is evil is now good. So in this hadith, you realize that the Prophet is mentioning that there will be a time where these things will switch, will be confused. Something that is good will now become evil. Something that is evil will now become good. For example, hijab is a good example of this. For us, modesty is the best way for a woman to show herself as being modest, to cover her hair. But this is ma'ruf for us. But in society we live, not with everyone, but there are times, or amongst some, that they'll see this as something bad. Actually, they'll look at, as you said, swimwear and wearing, which we say munkar, which is something very bad. They actually look at this as being ma'ruf. So in this hadith, you realize this. If there's no reference point, then that ma'ruf at some time in history, which is ma'ruf, can for a society become munkar, can become evil. So therefore we need, if you say that ethical behavior, ethics and morality does not need religion, then you're saying it doesn't need a reference point. Whatever society deems as ethical. And in this society that we live in, the dress of a woman, that's not really being immoral if they dress inappropriately. It's not really immoral if they don't cover their hair. It's not immoral, right? But actually, if you cover your hair, that is actually immoral. So that's the second proof, that you need religion in order to distinguish between good and evil, because it can be mixed up, as many things today. The third thing that I want to talk about is this, is that when you approach ethics and morality and you're trying to, as a Muslim, rid yourself of vices, trying to gain the virtues of God, you understand that you are doing this religiously, that this is actually for you kamal, this is for you perfection. And even though, God forbid, someone would be punished, we believe we deserve punishment if we are wrong with these immoral actions. But the fact that it is an obstacle, a barrier between us and God, for us is very hurtful. That if we are immoral, if we do something wrong, if we lie, if we cheat, if our dress is inappropriate, if our language is inappropriate, we know that there is a relationship between how we treat people, how we live our lives in society, with relationship with God. There is no bigger motivator for you to become a moral person without fear of God, without God in this equation. Imagine, God forbid, we don't have religion. There's no akhirat, there's no God, na'udhu billah. And I tell you, be an ethical person. What's the guarantee? Why would you even want to do this? It'd be nice to feel good for yourself. But when there is temptation, when there is shaitan, when there is evil, when there's the nafs that is ammar, a perpetual instigator of evil in you, then for one day you say, okay, one day I won't do it, but then when the temptations rise, you say, oh, we'll give in to it. The only way to rid yourself of immorality and immodesty is to view this as aduwwun mubin, as the work of shaitan, as evil, the work of the nafs, desires, and you fight against this in order for you to reach your destination, which is liqa'ullah, meeting God. That is the best way to view and to change your character. Sometimes we see Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in hadith. Bukhl is a big problem, cheapness. You're not going to have much motivation in today's life to say to be cheap is bad. Okay, let me fight against it. But religiously, we have narrations about bukhl and how bad it is, cheapness. You have some of the tawaf of Imam Sadiq around the Kaaba, and his dua was to rid me of bukhl, as being cheap. because sometimes having too much attachment to money will cause me not to give people their due, not to give my zakat, not to give my homes, not to help somebody when Allah wanted me to help them. You know? So the best way for us to be the most moral of people is that we see this as a journey between us and God, and see immorality and unethical behavior as an obstacle. Let me give you a hadith. Actually, when you look at it, you see that the best way and the only way to be ethical from hadith is that there's this connection between the submission of God and ethical behavior. Let me explain. Imam Ali alayhi salam in Khutbah Qasi'ah in Nahj al-Balagh mentions that Alhamdulillah alladhi labas al-izz wal-kibriya. He mentions two attributes of God, his izz, his might, and his kibriya, his greatness. Two attributes. وَاخْتَارَهُمَا لِنَفْسِهِ, that he has chosen only for himself. Nobody else can have kibriya, greatness, and might. Only Allah can have. دُونَ خَلْقِهِ وَجَعَلَهُمَا, these attributes, حِمِّي وَحَرَمًا عَلَى غَيْرِهِ. Nobody else should have these true attributes. The true attributes of kibriya, of greatness, and of might. وَاصْطَفَاهُمَا لِجَلَالِهِ وَجَعَلَ اللَّعْنَ عَلَى مَنْ نَازَاهُ فِيهِمَا مِنْ عِبَادِهِ, and has placed la'na and curse upon those of his servants that fight against him with these attributes. Meaning that if a person does not submit to God, the will of God, he will therefore be cursed by God. He will be cursed. So therefore, his adulma, his honor, or you could say his might, and his greatness are two attributes that are only for God. The only other attributes that we have as humans should be submission to his kibriya. And if you do not submit to God, you will therefore be of the curse of God. So you see, submission is the path from all the virtues that we can have. These two virtues of God are the virtues that are only for Him, and all the other virtues go back to this submission. So all ethical behavior without that submission is equal to nothing, is equal to la'na, according to this. Let me give you another narration. We have in this narration the relationship between, so God having all perfection and ethical behavior, and now the relationship between good attributes, ethical behavior, and aql, in the mind. So religion now teaches us, not only did we see that the destination of our lives is God subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we reach it through moral actions. The second part of this is that religion teaches us to have aql. Religion teaches us to be logical. Religion teaches us that to govern our passion, to govern our anger through the mind. Mullah Naraghi has an interesting book, Jami' al-Sa'adat, that divides the different faculties, divides man into 4 parts: the mind, desires, imagination, and anger. And then lists all the sins and vices, ethical vices, under each power. When a person is too angry, what happens? When a person has too much lust, what happens? And then sometimes mixes them. This sin is from lust and anger, or imagination. It mentions that for man to reach completion, he has to be so, his aql and his logic has to be so strong that it governs the rest of his body. It governs his lust, because in Islam, lust is not haram. It should just be governed. Or for example, anger. Anger is not something bad. It should just be governed and used in the right way. Imagination is not something bad. It should be governed. So religion teaches us aql. And this aql is the source of all ethical virtue. So how does Islam, we're saying, can you separate man the morality of man from religion, we said no. One, they cannot distinguish what is a moral act. Two, there's no motivation really. Just to be moral, just to be moral. Then what? But if you say you're freed of the hellfire, you want to go to heaven, you want to get close to God. And third, that God is the source of al-kamal in his submission. Without that submission, there's just going to be a place for all these vices to grow from out of you. That actually with the submission of God, it is what keeps all these ethical traits in balance and allows you to reach perfection. Let me give you, for this, I want to actually give you an example. How many here have gone to a religious place, like a shrine, like Hajj, somewhere international here? What was your feeling there? Have you ever gotten really into it? How many people here, when they got really into that dua, that salah, or maybe a time, let's talk about something that applies to everyone. Shahr Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr, night of Ashura, important time periods for us. That you're really into it, you feel very spiritual. What would happen at that time if I came and pushed you, for example? Get out of the way, my iftar's over there, for example. You wouldn't mind as much because you're spiritual. If you're feeling good about yourself, okay, go ahead, brother, please you first. You're such a gentleman, mashallah. Why? Because you're under the submission of God. Because we said all ethical virtue comes from that connection with God. But now say you're at home in your pajamas, you didn't shower for 2 or 3 days, you didn't brush your teeth, it smells, you didn't use deodorant, and then I come and push you. Get out of the way, that's my lunch. Like, what? You might punch me right in the stomach or something. So there's a relationship with the way we behave and our relationship with God. Would you guys agree with this? Yes or no? That when you feel more spiritual, when you feel more connected to God, that is when your virtues, ethical virtues grow more and are more enhanced with that submission to God. And then when you're separate with Him and you don't have a Mawla anymore, you don't have a Lord anymore, you don't submit, then it opens up for you. Then you can look at whatever you want to see, do whatever you want to do, be angry. Then you lose control of all those sins that come from lust. Then you lose control of all those sins that come from anger. But when you're in your salat, right when you come out of salat, tahir, pure, and that's how you know if your salat counts. You're not tempted to do evil anymore. Then, when a temptation happens, you say, no, it's actually not for me. I'm not actually that interested in it. So each and every one of you here agree with me. Wouldn't you agree with me? That the best way to be ethical is being ethical with God, through God, with religion. Because God is the source of al-kamal. So that was the other one. Then we said aql, and now, it's getting a little bit long, and pretty soon the ethics that I'm mentioning, people are going to lose it and lose their anger, and they might start throwing things at me and getting angry. But the other way that religion promotes ethical behavior is encouraging the aql so much and logic. Because when you allow emotions to just run, when you just allow anger to just run, when you allow passion and lust just to run without being governed, without being regulated, it leads to our destruction. Our aql balance is everything. Let's look at this narration. Sama' ibn Mihran, from, again, book of Al-Kafi. So alhamdulillah, tonight we're blessed with 2 narrations of Al-Kafi. If we don't read Al-Kafi ourselves, at least we come here once a week, we hear some hadith from Al-Kafi. If whatever in the middle was wrong, was not really have nur and light, at least these narrations have nur and light. Sama' ibn Mihran says, قال كنت عند أبي عبد الله عليه السلام وعنده جماعة من مواليه. I was with Imam Sadiq, with a group of his followers. فجرى ذكر العقل والجهل. How lucky they were. Imagine they're next to Imam Sadiq, and Imam Sadiq is teaching them about aql and jahl. How unfortunate we are. You have to sit in the congregation with me, and I have to teach you about aql and jahl. Imagine they were with Imam Sadiq. That's why they call our time period orphans. We're orphans. We're orphans, Ali Muhammad. And Imam Sadiq was teaching about the intellect and ignorance. And then it says in the hadith, اعرفوا العقل وجند Imam Hasaq says والجهل. Know the army of aql, know the army of ignorance. وجنده تهتدوا, so that you can be guided. قال سما قلت جعلت فداك, may I be sacrificed for you. ألا نعرف إلا ما عرفتنا. How much Sama has, mannerisms towards Imam Hasaq. I only know what you teach me. Here everyone here is already, let me tell you, but I have the answer, let me share. No, he says, I only know what you teach me. Go ahead, Mawlai. Go ahead, my Imam. And the Imam begins to teach him, فقال أبو عبد الله إن الله عز وجل خلق العقل وهو أول خلق من الروحانيين عن يمين العرش من نوره. The first creation of God was the aql, from the right part of his throne, from the light, from its light. The first creation was the mind. This is how we're saying religion is needed for ethical behavior. Because what governs lust and passion, first of all, what are all the roots of immorality? Lust and anger and imagination. And what governs it? Aql. So there's no aql and no this. So aql was first created. فَقَالَ لَهُ أَدْبِرْ فَأَدْبَرْ. What does adbir mean? Adbar means that, or means to turn away. Aqbal. So adbar means it comes to turn back, to go, right? Adbir, turn away. فَأَدْبَرْ, so it turns away. ثُمَّ قَالَ لَهُ أَقْبِلْ. Then it says, فَأَقْبِلْ. Aql did whatever God wanted it to do. MashaAllah. Submission of God. Go away. Turn away, turns towards me. فقال له تبارك وتعالى خلقتك خلقا عظيما. I have created you خلقا عظيما, the aql. وكرمتك على جميع خلقي, and you are the best of my creation. قال ثم خلق الجهل من بهل الأجاج. Then we have created ignorance from I was trying to look at this word ujaj. Can anyone help me? Bahr al-ujaj. So you're like me, it's okay. We're like in the same boat. But bahr is a sea. But anyways, I don't want to say it wrongly. But bahr al-ujaj, maybe someone can look it up. What's bahr al-ujaj mean? Sayyid can look it up. Ujaj. Dhulmaniyan. Maybe al-bahr, anyways, is at least the sea of darkness. But I don't know what ujaj is. فقال له أدبر فأدبر. Turn away, he turned away. But the problem with Jahl was this. قال له أقبل فلم يقبل. I said, come, face me. He didn't face me. He wasn't listening to me. Right? ثم قال له أقبل فقال له استكبرت فلعنه. Then Allah told ignorance, you are arrogant. You have become arrogant. You didn't submit to me. May curse be upon you. ثم جعل للعقل 75 جندا. Then he made an army for intellect. How many? What's 70? What's 75 mean? 75? How much? He will give it to you in dollars. You match it in dollars. Okay. $75. Good. He gave him 75 jundan, an army of 75. فلما رأى الجهل ما أكرمه الله به العقل وما أعطاه أضمر له العداوة. Then Jahl got upset how much Allah loved عقل. فقال الجهل يا ربي هذا خلق مثلي خلقته وكرمته وقويته وأنا ضده ولا قوة لي بي. So therefore I am against عقل فأعطني من جند. So give me from the army مثل ما أعطيته. You gave him 75, you give me 75. So therefore فإن عصيت بعد ذلك أخرجتك وجند من رحمتي. So therefore he got 75 جندا. So did you find that Ujaj, Bahr al-Ujaj? Salty. Very salty water. Okay. So now you have in this narration Al-Kafi two creations. Intellect in ignorance. Which one listened to God? Turn, he turned. Turn back, he turned back. Aql, logic. Which one was the one that didn't listen? Ignorance. How many armies do each one have? 75. So all those ethical, you can say, all those ethical vices, evil, ethical behaviors, is all from ignorance. And all good is from the aql. Therefore, we, as Muslims, as I said, to be an ethical creature, to be an ethical person, Islam gives us the ability to strengthen our aql all the time. So therefore we go with those 75 armies of the aql and to fight against ignorance and to acquire the 75. So therefore another factor that causes us to be more ethical as Muslims is the fact that we should be more aql, we should be more intellectual, we should have more aql in us. And if you look at the instructions of Islam, it's always about promoting aql. Read, for example, study. The Prophet of Islam, remember we said there's two groups of people, one worshipping, one reading and studying together. And which one did he prefer? Those that are studying and worshipping. Thinking, for example, 1 hour is equal to what, like 70 years of worship, for example, to think. The Quran keeps telling us to think and reflect, right? It emphasizes on the aql. And all our actions are actually actions based upon the aql. So therefore, to conclude, can you reach ethical behavior without religion? Say no. You cannot reach true. First of all, what is an ethical action? In general, you can agree, but in detail, you don't know. You would need a reference point in religion. 2, ethical behavior can change. Maybe it's ethical for this society, but it wasn't ethical 100 years ago. It can change. You don't have a reference. You need a reference point. 3, a believer and monotheist becomes ethical and has motivation because he wants to reach a goal. But a person that doesn't believe in mabda and al-ma'ad, doesn't believe in the start and the end and the return, why is he going to be ethical? What's going to really help him out? Just so he feels better? Is that enough motivation with all the temptations of this world? And the last we said, this is that the best way for us is to strengthen the aql, which Islam encourages, and all the armies and the virtue of virtue, all of them come with aql, and the enemies of the vices come from ignorance. But does this mean that all Muslim are ethical people? No. It means that we have not strove hard enough. We didn't have enough wisdom to understand that the way that we implement religion is to be ethical, and this is the gateway for us to reach God. But if every Muslim was completely ethical, then you would see everyone turning into Islam because they would want to become like us. So therefore, to become the most ethical of people, we need religion, and we need the religion of Islam. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. So for homework for you, I want you to think just of ways how you can cause two things. How you can cause your relationship with God to cause you more ethical virtue, to become more spiritual, reflective of God, and how that's going to help you be more ethical. If you get angry, if you have problems with other issues, how that relationship with God will save you. 2, how you can use the aql to steer away from moral vices, because they're not logical. When you really open each one of them up, you say, it doesn't make sense for me. Any questions, my dear friends? Yes. Correct.
And if we do what is halal, it's not simply halal because God said, because there's a reason it's good for me. For example, for me, as a woman to have hijab, it actually makes my life in this world better.
Yes.
So I get the reward of it
Mhm.
If I don't lie, I get the reward of it right here.
Yes,
If I don't have hasadat or jealousy,
yes, yes.
right?
That's your aql speaking. That's, by the way, the sister's mind speaking. Yes. Aql, keep continuing. Keep continuing, yes.
It's like what God has told me, right? I cannot figure all of it on my own, and that's why I need religion and guidance. But if I follow them, I get the reward right here.
Mhm. Yes,
Because there is a science behind it.
yes, yes.
I may not be able to see this or realize or know the science, but there are rules in this world that has made jealousy bad, that has made both bad. So why is it that motivation needs to be God and the hereafter? Why is it the motivation not simply because if I do right, I will be rewarded right here?
Very good. That is one type of motivation. But what I mentioned is when a person leaves religion altogether, or now if a person leaves religion altogether, then imagine, and is said not you're still. It seems like you're still approaching this question as someone that believes in God, a person that is still believing in the hereafter. But also, you're saying one benefit is themselves, the world. Yes, we agree with all of that. There is a result that you see in this world, a result in the hereafter, a result you see in God. And we have in the du'as, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Yes. But for that person, they might not have that if God was completely out of the equation, hereafter completely out of the equation, would they really just sit just for the world and say, okay, I'm going to stay away from this drink every single time, for example, even with all the peer pressure? No, I know. There might be some people that might just do it, but no, I know they would not. They would not. Usually they would not. That would not be enough motivation for them every time to not even have one drop, for example. So then they would, every time their limit of that ethical behavior, each time would be, more allowed, more allowed, more allowed, because it's hard for them to see it. You're seeing it after you have studied Islam, after you have practiced Islam, and the aql has opened up for Islam. But many people, they won't see it like this. And if you talk to them just for this world, have these, stay away from all these things that we have, some of them, they're going to come, these ethical issues, they're going to come into problems with. They won't have that as strong as a motivation to stay away from these things because of the love of God, for example. That is probably, Hubbullah is one of the best motivators that we have. If you really believe it's a barrier for you, yes, there will be benefit for us, but maybe one time they want to have an exception. One day they'll say, okay, one day it's a wedding. It's a wedding, for example. It's one night. Okay, then I'll go back to this track again. But one night is an exception. You could make an exception if it's only for the dunya, maybe. But when you put God in hereafter, it seems, from my understanding, that it would be a much stronger, it would be a very strong motivation. Yes, that is another source of motivation, but it is not complete, we would say, just for the world, just for itself. Yes.
You mentioned Ab had 75 soldiers and
Yes.
then ignorance.
Yes.
Isn't ignorance and darkness simply the lack of act or the lack of light? Or
Yes.
is there actually something that is ignorance?
So that's actually something I thought about before giving this presentation. I thought about it, and to be honest, I was thinking of it myself, and then I told myself, you know what, I don't think no one will ask me this question, so alhamdulillah, someone asked me this question. Yeah. So, yes, that's one thing, because we usually say, it would be Adam. Adam is non-existence in this world. But maybe was an alam al-arwah. One answer is alam al-arwah. Maybe it was a different world then. And this is how the hadith is showing us, that it was an alam al-arwah, that it is something, So, another world, not this world. Alam al-arwah is the world of spirits. There's another world, yes. But I have to think about it still. I don't know the answer. they get happy, and obviously I don't know how the expectation is, but they long for it, you could say. They long for someone to come, because when you go, you recite Fatiha, recite Quran. They like possibly to see you, especially Thursday. One of the best times to visit them is Thursday afternoon, and that is when they could see you more. Possibility for them to see you as well, and so they witness you, and it's very important, very encouraged to visit them, and obviously to recite. If a person, the narration has, if a person recites Surah Yasin, I'm not saying it because this center is called Yasin, but if a person recites Surah Yasin, all the punishment of everyone in that graveyard stops. Not only that person you're reciting, everyone in that graveyard stops. So therefore they're longing for your visit and longing for your reward, yes? They're there, yes. They can be somewhere else, yes, but that's why Thursday night, afternoon, or they say don't visit at nighttime. It's possible that the spirits are somewhere else at nighttime. And this is one of the reasons that it's maybe discouraged to visit at nighttime, because they are at other places. So Thursday afternoon works, other days, but every day is recommended. Every day it says, not night. I don't know that. If they don't ask me too much, then I have to go and check it out, and then you won't have a speaker. Yeah. They will bring dua kumail in the graveyard Thursday afternoons. بس بس صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد اللهم صل.
Please join me in reciting Dua al-Hajjah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك على في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.